This is the first part of a two-part series on how to get TV schedules up and running and looking like retn.org's website displays them. And the first part of this screencast is going to actually show you how to get Community Media Airing module up and configured and how to connect that to a Telvue feed for your public TV schedules and how to get that imported into your Drupal site. We'll then go over how you can connect those airings to CM Show and CM Project modules. And that first part, we'll just cover that, and then the second part will cover how to get this TV schedules view into your system and how to change and modify the colors and everything like that. So the first thing here that's important is that this TV schedule is actually originated from Manhattan Neighborhood Network's design, and they were generous enough to agree for us to use the same design for RETN, and so we went ahead and developed that. And the TV schedules looks like this. You can browse by day or use a pop-up calendar to go to a specific day. The airings then connect into their shows and projects for 3 different channels, and then it also has prime time as a separate color, and then what's currently playing as a third color. So again, we'll go over that part in the second screencast, but the purpose of this screencast is to actually get these airings in. So this has been documented already. If you go to the Community Media Airing module on Drupal.org and you go to the documentation page, that will walk you through step by step how you can go ahead and import airings from Drupal into Telvue. But as it's always good to have multiple forms of documentation, I'm going to also provide this to you in the form of a screencast so you can follow along. So I have a easy starter kit install up and running. And this is pretty much straight out of the box, the easy starter kit, with one main customization, which is that I have added in the additional module called CM Project, and I've done that because a lot of different community media centers use this module, and so you can add that in. It does require organic groups, and there's documentation on how you can install that. You don't have to have this module to get your TV schedules showing on your website. You can do it without this, and I'll show you both how to do it without it and with it. But so this easy starter kit install to start off has the project and the show modules installed. And then what you're going to need to also add in to get this to work is you're going to need to add in the Telvue module and the feeds module. And so to do that, you would FTP into your server, and you would go into the site's all modules folders and add in the appropriate modules that you want to download. And so for our purposes today, we installed CM Project, OG, we installed Telvue, and then you're also going to need feeds. And so from the feeds page, you need to download the most recent alpha stable release, alpha 8, and upload that. And for the Telvue module, you can go ahead and go to that page and download the most recent alpha version of that. For the second part of this demonstration, you're also going to want the module called references, and that's really only specific if you want to have the connection, the same views as RETN is using. You can also make that work just using the entity API module. If you'd rather do entity references that way, you can also do that. For this purpose, we'll use the references module. And then later on in the second screencast, you're going to need the calendar module, so you can go ahead and download that as well. So you're going to want to go ahead and get, for this initial tutorial, you want to get CM Project turned on, CM Show turned on, and then you're going to go ahead and turn on the airing module. And then after that's turned on, you'll go into feeds. And from this, not all these are necessary for our example today, so I'll go through which ones are. You'll turn on feeds, you'll turn on feeds admin UI, feeds import, and then if you scroll down, you'll see you have a feeds Telvue schedule module. You want to turn that on as well. The rest of these are not necessary to our tutorial today, but those will do integration with things like Cloudcast and media files, so that'll be a different tutorial. So once you turn that on, feeds and Telvue, you'll go ahead and save that. And so the first thing we actually want to do is we actually need to fix something in the airing module that's broken in order for your feed importer to work out of the box. And so there's actually two ways you can apply this fix. The first way is through a patch, which I won't go over because I think for the purposes of this tutorial people may not know how to patch. So I'll show you a way you can do it directly through the UI. So after you turn on the airing module, it's always a good idea to see what your configuration options are. So go to configuration, and there's two things we need to fix. The first thing we can fix directly in the field here. So you need to double check that your airing date is set to UTC time in order for that Telvue schedule to come in properly. So go ahead and click edit on that field, then go to the field settings, and it's important that you do this before there's actually data in the database. For the purposes of my demo, there is some data in here already, but you want to make sure that time zone handling is set to UTC. So if it's not, go ahead and change that and click Save Field Settings. So the next thing that you need to do is you need to fix the view that's broken with airings. So on your site, go to Structure, Views, and you'll see there's an airings view here. And what you need to do is you need to go back to the CM Airing project and go into the issue queue. So if you go in here and you look for the queue called Update View, if you select this, if you want to do it the patching way, you can download the patch, but otherwise you're going to scroll down here to the view code that's been provided, and you're going to copy that code. And then go back to your views page and click import. And it's important here that you check off this replace existing view if one exists with the same name. Paste your code there and click import. And then on the next page click save. And that will go ahead and fix our view so that when we import airings everything will look correct. So the next thing that I want to check is I want to look at the structure for the airings again. So go into structure and click airings, and these are the fields that come by default with the airings module. And so we already fixed the date field to make sure that's set to UTC time. The other fields we have by default is just a title of the airing, a duration of the airing, and then the channel the airing is going to go on. And this channel is very important. This is connected to a taxonomy term reference. When the airing module is installed, a taxonomy is created called channel. And in order for your feed importer to work, you have to make sure you have a term in that taxonomy that matches the name of your feed for your program schedules. So the way we're going to do this is you need to go into the taxonomy, so structure, taxonomy, and then under channel you can look at the terms, but there won't be anything there, so you'll click add term. And then what you need to do is pull up your public facing Telvue feed that you're going to import into the system. So in the case of RETN, I have the feed that I want. And what's key here is the title of this feed here. So for RETN, the title is RETN 16 North. If I do a view source on this feed, I can also find this by looking at the very top under the channel tag. There's a title tag, and that will give me my channel. That may say just 10 or channel 10 or whatever it is you've named it in your Telvue system. You need to copy that exactly and add that into the channel taxonomy and click save. So as long as that matches up, now we're ready to create our feed that will actually import all of these items. So to do that, you go to structure, feed importers, and we're going to add an importer. So we'll call this airings. We'll click create. And this is where we need to apply our settings here. So the first one, this is if you want it to import automatically. And so normally you would probably want to do that, and you'll probably set it to process in the background because it's maybe a large import. But for today's purposes, since this is a development site, we're going to set this to off so that we can manually control when we import this. Now our fetcher, we're going to leave the same because we're going to download the content from a URL. So we're going to ignore that in the settings. Then we'll go to the parser. And once you've turned on that Telvue schedule feed module, you'll have a Telvue schedule RSS parser that you can select and save. And there won't be any settings you can adjust here, so you can skip the settings and go straight to the processor. Now, assuming you've downloaded the Alpha 8 version of feeds, you will now have these entity processor options listed as experimental. And we need this because we need the airing entity processor. And we'll save. And what that does is that will allow us to have some additional field mapping where we can map certain information from this feed into our airings on our Drupal site. So now we'll go into the settings for the airing processor, and we want to update existing airings, so we'll set that there and click Save. And then here's where we can map our fields. So we have to actually map what's in the RSS feed into our system. So the first thing that you should know if you're looking at a feed, since we want to update our airings in case they change, if you're looking at the actual feed itself, you'll see there is an identifier for every single item in the feed. And this is a unique identifier that lets Drupal know it's dealing with an item it's already seen before and to update it. So that's the first thing we want to make sure we include in our feed. So from our source, we'll select that unique identifier and we'll map that to the same unique identifier in our target, our Drupal system. And very importantly, after you do this, you want to click the widget that says not used as unique, change it to unique, click update, and then make sure you click the save button or it won't retain that info. So the next thing we want to do is we want to map the start date and time. And so again, if you're looking at your actual feed, you'll see there's a pub date tag, and that applies to the start date and time of the particular airing. And so we want to map that to our date field. So that's the source is the published, and the target is going to be date start. So we'll save that. And then we also want to map our end time. So we'll choose end date time and we'll map that to our date end. And then we will choose the next item, which is the title of the feed. So the actual title will be the file name unless you actually have info in your program field, in which case it would be the title of the program. So we want to have a name for our airing, so we'll map title to title. And then we also get a duration. We can do a duration here because we have a duration field. We'll save that. And we can map our channel, which is very important in order for this to work. So channel goes to channel. And so that's our initial feed without setting it up to map to any shows or projects. So now we can go ahead and test our feed importer to see if it worked. So you go here, then go to the airings page, and I actually have items in here that I previously imported, but we'll go ahead and import them again. And so that may take some time in order to initialize because there is a full week's worth of data in your feed, which is going to be quite large. So again, that's why we often set this to import automatically and to import in the background. But once we have that up and running, we can go make sure that those airings imported. So you'll go to Content tab and you'll choose airings. And here's where you can see that your airings are actually importing. Now this is giving me a bunch of errors related to my feed import, which you may see that on your system, but those are notices, so we won't worry about them for now. It's imported 461 titles. So now if I refresh this page, I won't see these errors because they were associated with the feed, but what I will see is that my airings are in fact importing correctly. So that's the first step in this process. The next step would be to tie the airings into an actual show, and the point in doing that is so that when you have your final TV schedule displaying, people can click through it. So I could click through to the series Frog Hollow Art Openings, or I could click through to the show Interpreting the Trail. And in order to do that, we have to set up some references within our airings so that it knows to map to the show. So to do that, now that you have a working feed, you would go into Structure and you would go into Airings. Now here's where it's very important that if you want to actually, in the second tutorial, copy code directly from the RETN website, then you're going to need to name these fields the exact same thing. If you want to create those views yourself, then you can name them whatever you want. But so for the purposes of this, it's important that we name them the same thing we have in RETN. So you'll go to Structure and then you'll go into your airings, and we're going to choose to add a new field here. I'm going to call this field Show, and then very importantly I need to edit the machine name of that. And the name of this field has to be airing underscore show underscore ref. And before we can do this, actually, excuse me, we need to install that references module. So now we need to go back to the modules page, and we need to search for reference. And eventually it will come up here, node reference. So we'll go ahead and save this, and it will ask me, it's telling me I have to enable the references module to install no reference. That's good. We'll click continue. And again, this is only required if you want to be able to import the RETN views as is without errors. So to do that, we go ahead and install this, and then we'll go back to Structure, Airings, and here we'll add a new field. And so this, we'll call it Show, and then we need to edit this and call it airing underscore show underscore ref. In the field type, you need to choose node reference and autocomplete. And we'll click Save. And then on the next page for the widget settings, we just need to check what we're referencing. We're referencing a show. So we'll save those field settings. And in the next page, we'll save the settings again. And then we need to do the same thing for project. We need to add a field called project. This will be our series reference, and it needs to be called airing underscore project underscore ref. And that is a node reference again and an autocomplete text field. And same process, but this time we're going to be referencing projects on the second page. So we'll reference a project and then save the more detailed settings, project. And so now that we've set up those fields, we just need to add them to our feed importers. So we'll go to Structure, Feeds Importers, edit the airings import, and go to your mapping. And here we're going to choose to map to our show and our project. So if you go back to your actual feed, you'll see the title, as I mentioned before, would be your program or project name if it exists, and then there's also a tag for episode. And if you filled that in, that would be your show name. So that's what we're going to map in our airings feed here. So from the source, we're going to map the title field yet again, but this time we're going to do it to project node reference by node title allow duplicate nodes. Save that. And then you're going to choose episode from the source, and you're going to map that to show node reference by node title allow duplicate nodes. So we'll save that. And now we need to test our feed importer again. So we'll go to import, and we will go to the airings import, and we'll choose import. Again, since we've set up that unique identifier, it should just update our existing airings as opposed to duplicate them. And again, this may take a few minutes to do, but what we're actually doing is we're making it now so that when we get this TV schedules display, we'll display a link to the show as opposed to just an airing that doesn't go anywhere. And that node reference connection is what allows us to do that. So it appears that's going to take a minute. Again, it's always a good thing to do in the background. And we'll see we have those warnings again, but at the bottom we'll see we've updated some items. So let's go look and see if that matches. So one thing you might want to do first is actually go into your airing structure again, and just so you make sure your display is set to show links for these. So if this is set to title no link, you want to change it to title link. It should be set to the link by default, but just make sure those are set and click save. And so now let's go look and see if we were able to get a couple of those tied in. So what I've done is I've just added two shows that I know match, and then I've added two projects that I know match in that feed. So I added this show as a CM show, and I added this project as a CM project. So now, since it's matching based on the title, we'll go see if in the airings it actually matched those up. So let's go to our airings, and I know that this airing here, the Frog Hollow openings, should match this feed item here. So that would be the project, and this would be the show interpreting the trail. So let's go ahead and click on this airing. And that's another error, actually, just in the display of this, which we'll need to fix. You'll see it's displaying it with a comma in it. So for now, let's just go. We'll manually edit this, and I'll have to update that issue to fix this. But so the airing is 1386. So we'll go to airing 1386, and let's take a look. And it does look like it indeed attached to the show and the project, you'll see, successfully. So if we view that airing, we'll see we can click through here to the trail and the project. So that is how you get a working Telvue feed of airings, and how you connect them into shows and projects. And again, you're going to want to make sure those field names are exactly the same if you want to follow along in the second tutorial. And by the time you do this, hopefully, if you go to the CM airing to fix that view as we discussed, and you go into that view you're going to copy and paste. You just look for updated code. I will update that now. So that will just be in here, and this will be updated with the fix. So follow along in the second screencast to see how you can actually get finalized display looking like this.